Tokyo just dropped even more news about their new Tomorrowland, with another classic ride at the park being totally transformed. And it seems pretty clear that this is just the beginning of something that will probably end up being even bigger than Fantasy Springs, the enormous 4-ride expansion coming to Disney Sea this June. But what will this new Tomorrowland be? What will the park be losing to get it? And how do we know that there's more coming? I'm Jordan at 8-Bit Theme Park Japan, and living in Tokyo, it's a very exciting time for me, as the short-term and long-term future of my favorite place in the world, Tokyo Disney Resort, is very bright. So to get right into it, we had a shocking announcement this week that the classic Toy Story shooting ride, Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters, will be closing down forever this October to be replaced by a Wreck-It Ralph ride to open in 2026. On its own, this is interesting enough, but when paired up with Space Mountain, which is closing July 31st, to be replaced by an entirely new Space Mountain roller coaster in 2027, which we also have some news on that I'll get to later, we can start to see that plans for Tomorrowland are much bigger than 1 or 2 new rides. You may have noticed that I gave an exact closing date for Space Mountain, but not for Astro Blasters. Well, that's because, despite it being just a few months away, OLC only gave us the vague closing date of October. Pair this with the fact that Buzz has just had months of scheduled maintenance, which included repainting the exterior of the building, and it's scheduled for more maintenance this June. It seems like this may have been a sudden decision by Tokyo Disney. Perhaps they originally wanted it to open after Space Mountain, but are now thinking it would be nice to have this whole area ready when the new coaster comes. We can see from the new artwork, as well as the Space Mountain artwork from last year, that this is going to change the areas surrounding these rides too. The whole style of the area will change to create more space, whilst also having more interesting things in that space. Right now, Tomorrowland is a lot of flat concrete, and it's pretty uninspiring to be honest. Whether it's these installations in front of the new Space Mountain, or the walls around Wreck-It Ralph, it's easy to see that there's a very new aesthetic going on here, and one that's finally going to make Tomorrowland more modern, after 41 years of it being stuck in the past. Probably right in time for the original Tomorrowland to come back in style, but that's fine. Some argue that the original is timeless, but I really think we're overdue an update, so this is very exciting. And I think at night time, this area is going to be stunning. It's always the part of the park I least enjoy spending time in, to be honest, but it's where a lot of the good rides are, so you kind of have to spend a lot of time there. Making it more pretty is going to rock. I wonder if we'll get a new soundtrack. Part of me wants to keep it the same because it's just so nostalgic, but also, the background music in Shanghai's Tomorrowland is absolutely incredible, made by one of my favorite producers, BT, so if we're getting him on board again, I'd be very happy. There's a great article about him working on the music for Shanghai's Tomorrowland, which I'll link in the description, and at the end of it, he said he'd do it again in a heartbeat, so maybe they will get him back. So let's get into Wreck-It Ralph, because I think the choice of this IP tells us a lot about what this new Tomorrowland's mission statement will be. I suspected that with the new Space Mountain, we could take a chance to really delve into space travel as a concept and try to capture that awe and wonder of the universe, and that would mean doubling down on the space travel theme that links the ride with Buzz Lightyear, Stitch, and Star Tours, which we'll talk about a bit later. But Wreck-It Ralph is a departure from this theme. It has nothing to do with space travel. Let's get into the details of this ride, and then I'll talk about why I think it's significant for the future of the land, and what it could mean for other Tomorrowland rides, attractions, and even restaurants. Yeah, I'm worried too. We can be worried together. In the attraction, enter the candy-themed racing game Sugar Rush, which is being attacked by sugar bugs, glitches created by King Candy. Guests team up with the beloved film characters Ralph and Vanellope to transform the sugar bugs back into their original kawaii confectionery, such as cookies and cakes. I love that the word kawaii is even in the English version. It's pretty clear that this ride is not about space or space travel in any way. So what is it about? Well, I think it's about technology. It's about technology breaking. In fact, a virtual world being infected with glitches that we need to fix. Not to harp on endlessly about this, but BT is a glitch music pioneer, so that would make even more sense to get him back in. A lot of people have suggested that a Sugar Rush overlay to Autopia in other parks would be a good choice, because the game is clearly about racing, so it is a bit strange that they've used the IP for a shooting ride. And clearly the main reason for doing so is because they want to reuse this popular existing ride system. In fact, what is Sugar Rush really? It's a kart racing video game. It's Mario Kart. And we all know what type of ride Mario Kart was made into. You may be thinking, well, Buzz has the spin control, maybe they could turn that into a steering wheel to add a kind of driving feel. But you can see in the artwork when you look closely that the part of the vehicle that currently has the spin joystick is flat. This has some precedent, as the only other time we've seen Astro Blasters reworked into a new ride is Ant-Man and the Wasp Nano Battle at Hong Kong Disneyland, and in that ride they took away the spin control too. It makes a lot of sense when you think about it. It means guests can focus on shooting and enjoying the ride, and the designers can have more control over what the guests will be looking at, which gives them more freedom for storytelling. Anyone who's ridden Buzz Lightyear with someone else who is moving the spin control knows how frustrating it is when you're aiming at something and it suddenly spins. And we don't want rides to cause friction between family members, that's not good. So yeah, taking it out is probably a smart choice. Whilst we're on the topic of that Ant-Man ride and the precedent it sets, there is something really great in that ride and a lot of things that I really don't like. And I'm worried that all of them could be coming to our Wreck-It Ralph ride. Let's start with the negatives. Screens. Oh, another person complaining about screens in rides. I know, but Ant-Man felt like a huge downgrade because there are like no moving parts. It's basically all screens. In the artwork for Wreck-It Ralph, the characters look just like they do in the movie, which many have taken to mean that this will be screens too. I'm hoping that this could be some creative liberty and they will actually be animatronics. A guy can dream. The other issue with the Ant-Man ride in Hong Kong is how grey the whole thing is. Well, I don't think we're going to have that problem. The ride is clearly going to be bright and colourful and full of cute little candy creatures. Also, the part of the description that mentions King Candy got me very excited. I feel like he's been the best Disney villain for ages, and imagining a glitched out King Candy scene in the ride is very exciting. Could be a good chance to add a bit of peril to an otherwise cute and colourful ride. Another negative to me is that this is just a reskin of the Buzz ride. That's a pretty short, pretty compact ride, which is great for what it is, but it might make it hard to live up to any large expectations. Hopefully, they really make this as good as it possibly can be in that short ride time, and fill it with great sets and animatronics so it really makes an impact. The positive of reusing Buzz's ride system is the throughput. Omnimovers are absolute beasts when it comes to capacity, and assuming they don't add a pre-show, it means the queue is constantly moving. I'm sure it'll have the paid queue skipping pass, at least for a little while, but who knows what systems we'll have in place by 2026, so it's probably not worth speculating on that stuff too much right now. One last qualm I have before we get into the things I'm excited about is that it appears that we will be doing the majority of the queuing outside the ride building. I think this would have been a great opportunity to add more indoor queue, as this line is always going through loads of outdoor switchbacks, and that's for the current version, which is 20 years old. This new one is going to be super popular, so more indoor queue would have been really nice, especially considering the weather here in Tokyo. Why didn't they do that? Well, clearly reusing a ride system is something that you do when you're on a relatively small budget, and also I think it does add a lot of space to that area. Even if half of it is full of people queuing up, it just gives the area more space than like putting vertical walls up there would do, which would make that main thoroughfare up to Space Mountain a lot more narrow. The best thing about Hong Kong's Ant-Man ride, as well as the Buzz ride in Shanghai Disneyland, are their blasters. If you haven't used them, the laser pointer is like always on. So whenever you move your gun, you can see exactly what it's aiming at before you shoot. And the two blasters are even different colors, so it's just a million times easier to aim and know what you're pointing at. That is something that should really be added to all of Disney's Buzz Lightyear rides around the world, so I'll be very happy to get that here. So, if the new Tomorrowland isn't about space, what is it about? Right now, we have Space Mountain, Stitch Encounter, Buzz Lightyear, and Star Tours, which are all themed around space or space travel. This always made Monsters Inc. Ride and Go Seek feel like it didn't fit into the rest of the land. It's pushed away in the corner, with an exterior that almost fits the adjacent World Bazaar Main Street area more than it does Tomorrowland, where it actually is. It has nothing to do with space, and it seems like it was simply a way of getting the popular movie into the parks. And hey, I'm glad that they did. It's an incredibly fun ride. Fast forward to 2020, and in a strange move, rather than hedge their bets on Tomorrowland, they double down and build the Happy Ride with Baymax, a flat ride with an original soundtrack and lighting package, which have turned it into some kind of nightclub for underage teens. Again, a lot of fun, but nothing to do with space travel. Was this another short-sighted attempt to get a Disney movie into the park? Or was this actually the beginning of this new Tomorrowland? Think about what Baymax replaced. Starjets. This park's version of Astro Orbiter or Orbitron or Space Dumbo or whatever you want to call it. So, a ride themed around technology, Baymax, replaced a ride themed around space travel, Starjets. Fast forward again to today, and a ride based around technology, Wreck-It Ralph, replaces a ride based around space travel, Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters. Look at the exterior artwork for the new Wreck-It Ralph ride. And in the shop, this isn't rocket age futurism. This is technological futurism. The outside walls look like a circuit board, presumably with these lights pulsing through the area. Subtly changing the overarching theme of Tomorrowland from the more specific theme of space travel to the much broader theme of technology allows them to bring together a plethora of Disney properties into one somewhat cohesive land. I know it's a stretch, especially getting Monsters Inc. to fit in with this, and I suspect that never really will. But if Tomorrowlands around the world are all destined to become dumping grounds for somewhat futuristic Disney properties, then why not at least try to make some sense of it and lean into it? Let Tomorrowland be the fantasy land of the future. Now I know what you're thinking, but Jordan, they're building a new Space Mountain. This whole new Tomorrowland is going to be anchored by an enormous new indoor roller coaster themed entirely around space travel. I really do admire that, despite all I've just said about embracing Tomorrowland as a Disney IP dumping ground, they still recognized that Space Mountain is iconic Disney IP and is worth keeping around. I wish they realized FastPass was iconic too, instead of renaming it 40th Anniversary Priority Pass, even after the 40th anniversary is over. But anyway, guess what? This is the genius of changing the theme from space travel to technology. Space travel is technology. A huge component of what makes space travel so exciting is how we manage to accomplish it. The rockets, the satellites, the space stations. Space travel is an absolute marvel of technological achievement, and it makes perfect sense to have a ride based on space travel as the pinnacle of technology. So we have Baymax representing healthcare technology, Wreck-It Ralph representing video game and virtual reality technology, Space Mountain representing space travel technology, Monsters Inc. representing transportation? Monster door technology? I know. So, if Space Mountain is representing space travel for Tomorrowland, do we really need any other attractions doing the same thing? We didn't keep Buzz because Tomorrowland isn't a space land anymore. Across the road from Buzz is Stitch Encounter, which is by far the least popular attraction in the park, probably in the entire resort, so it would be absolutely insane if they kept it in this redo. In this attraction, you're talking to Stitch on a spacecraft. It's another space ride. We don't need that in our new technological Tomorrowland, so I'm pretty sure Stitch's days are numbered. What about Star Tours? It always has one of the shortest lines in the park. Sure, that's largely because it has such good throughput, but could there be a modern Star Wars ride that might be a bigger draw? Behind Star Tours is a big old car park waiting to be turned into a galaxy far, far away. And right next to it is the dated outdoor theater show base, which has been expected to be replaced for a very long time. Although you can see show base in the new Space Mountain artwork from last year, in the Wreck-It Ralph artwork released this week, it's nowhere to be seen. Maybe this huge area becomes our own Galaxy's Edge, which is a completely new land. Or maybe a major Star Wars ride fulfills the robotics technology vacancy in our new Tomorrowland. I don't find it hard at all to imagine Tokyo being the first to lose Star Tours, especially if it's for a new Star Wars ride or entire new land. Remember, our Star Tours isn't even getting this new seasonal overlay for the new Star Wars series stuff. That's because Tokyo Disney isn't operated by Disney. Disney love using Star Tours to promote whatever new Star Wars film or series or whatever they have going on at the time. OLC, who run Tokyo Disney, don't care about promoting whatever Disney are doing right now. They care about having rides that guests want to come and pay to go on. Now, I had always thought that keeping a Tokyo Galaxy's Edge or Star Wars Land, whatever that would be, keeping that for a Disney Sky third gate in the future would be a really smart move. It fits in with a Sky theme perfectly, and it would be a good way to give this theoretical third park its own identity a bit, you know? But hey, we could fill a book of things that would have fit better in Disney Sky. Soaring, maybe the new Peter Pan ride, you know. You can really go down a rabbit hole with that stuff, so it's probably best not to overthink it. Some sort of Galaxy's Edge being at the back of Tomorrowland, or just one major Star Wars ride being in Tomorrowland, I think would work perfectly well. So that leaves us with one final remnant of space travel in Tokyo Disneyland's Tomorrowland. One giver of galactic gourmet, the cuisinier from another quasar, the operator of the Pizzatron 3000, and manager of the Earth's first branch of pan-galactic pizza, Tony Solaroni. Could this beloved pizza pioneer finally be able to retire after all these years? If anyone has earned it, he has. But I don't think I'm ready to say goodbye. I'd argue that we still have a vacancy for food production technology in our new Tomorrowland, and that your boy Tony and his Pizzatron 3000 would proudly represent the power of pizza making. However, last year the park suddenly released a lot of merchandise for Tony Solaroni. It was surprising, but looking back, maybe this was the resort's way of trying to gauge the popularity of this character. Maybe if his merch didn't sell so well, they'd consider closing down Pan-Galactic Pizza Port. Well, over a year later, there are still tons of Tony Solaroni plushies in stock in the parks, so make of that what you will. Nothing's certain. Maybe this is it, and we've already heard all the changes that are coming to Tomorrowland, but my suspicion is that we've only just begun. So whilst it's a very exciting time to be a Tokyo Disney fan, this isn't going to be like Fantasy Springs. We're not going to get a new Tomorrowland without having to give anything up. So next time you're here, take some extra time to enjoy Tomorrowland, whatever it looks like when you're here, because tomorrow it might be very different than it is today. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider joining my Patreon, where you can get extra perks such as early videos that are ad-free, and also you can get my personal message, so you can message me about an upcoming trip that you have. I live here, I go there all the time. I can help you to have a good time here too. A huge thank you to everyone there. You really help me to go to the parks more often. And yeah, if you liked this video, I know you'll love this one, which is all about the future of Tokyo Disney Sea next door, because after Fantasy Springs opens, the park is still going to do some more growing.